2020 meeting to order, Lake Commission meeting to order. This is a preliminary matter. I am Peter Collins, I'm chair of the Lake Quinsigamond Commission. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. So I'm going to go through the roll. Mr. Pica.
Present.
You here? All right, great. Officer Valieri.
I'm present.
Okay. Captain DeAndre.
Present.
I thought I heard you in there. Mr. Nickerson.
Present.
All right. Ms. Amory, I can see you right in front of your center screen on me. There you go.
Your center screen on me.
All right. I'm gonna practice pronouncing Lisa's last name. So, Lavoisier. Try to do it with an accent. You're on mute, Lisa. So I can see you though. Okay, you can hear me, right?
You can just
okay.
say Lisa.
All right, I'll do that from now on. Thank you. Mr. Nelson, I can pronounce that one.
Present.
Present. Okay, great. So everyone's here. Oh, I'm sorry. And Jacqueline Burmeister, you here, Jack?
Yep, I am here.
All right, awesome. And I'm not sure who's going to be here from the watershed. Is it Barbara? Or Mike Libby? Is there anyone here from the watershed, from the Lake Quinsigamond watershed?
Mr. Chair, I think Officer Amato's on as well.
Okay. Oh, Officer Amato. So you're here? You can hear me?
I am here, sir. Yes.
Oh, thank you very much. All right. Perfect. Mr. Polito is not joining us tonight, and we'll go from there. So, good evening. The open meeting of the Lake Quinsigamond Commission is conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the Corona-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the Corona-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. As such, the governor's orders suspend the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. After your presentation, members of the board will be given the opportunity to ask questions. After members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as well. So we're not going to have a hearing tonight, so none of the rest of the stuff is germane. But if we do get called on to speak, and please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. And finally, any vote, in each vote that we take in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. So everybody's good with that? Okay, so moving on to the agenda, approval of minutes from July, August, and September. I couldn't find mine. Is that? You're on mute if you're trying to say something, Ansel. Oh,
Sorry, I still haven't sent those out. You will get them shortly, though.
No worries. Okay. Review of approval of bills and expenses. What do we have? I know I just replied to you late, Angela, so I hope you got that.
I did send it to Sean, Officer Valari. I don't know if you want to read the expenses or do you want me to read them?
I do have them here. I can read them.
All right, thanks.
Let me just bring them up. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay, for the treasurer's report, we have, I know this is Officer Amato's job, but I'll be happy to do it. It's $450 to ESS for Newton Pond permitting project. Says 5% completion in September. And then we have $31 to Mass Corps for 100 boat dock stickers. That's all I
okay.
have.
All right. Okay. That was paid stuff, yes? Or stuff we have to approve?
That's stuff that'll be paid on the next warrant.
Okay. Do we, so we already approved those? Is that,
We're just approving them now, so they'll get paid now.
okay, so we need to have a vote.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I'll entertain a motion to approve the bills.
Make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we approve the bills. This is Michael Piker, Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, so all those in favor, Mr. Piker,
Aye.
Officer Amato,
Aye.
okay, Officer Valieri,
Aye.
all right, Captain DeAndre,
Aye.
Mr. Nickerson,
Aye.
Ms. Amory,
Aye.
Ms. Lisa,
Aye.
and Mr. Nelson.
Aye.
All right, Mr. Collins is aye. So voted, it's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, going to move on to Commissioner's reports. It's quieted down quite a bit. Weather's got a little bit colder. Someone's talking about snow this weekend. That's a lot of fun. We did have, I'm not going to steal the watershed's thunder on this, but I do want to thank the town. I want to reach out and thank Angela and Kevin for arranging the pickup. We went out and got some of the, we'll call drifter docks off the lake. There was 5 or 6 of them that we found, and I guess from what I heard, we missed one. So, you know, we'll probably, if the need be, this will be something we'll have to do again. But basically, these docks were just washed up on people's shores. And just a note that if you lose your dock, it would be helpful if you would notify the Lake Commission that your dock has disappeared, and so we can keep an eye out on them. These things float around in the lake, have the potential to cause major navigational hazards and major safety concerns, because if a boat hits it or a water skier hits it or something happens, some bad stuff can, you know, some injuries and even death can happen. So you don't want that out there. You can't see them. Some of the ones we took out were literally basically half submerged, so you couldn't see them in a moving boat, especially at night. And thankfully, they were all kind of up against the shore. I want to commend the abutters who took it upon themselves to take these docks and tie them in to their shore so they would not drift out again. So I want to thank everyone who did that. I also reminded, if one comes on your shore, please notify the Lake Commission as soon as possible, and do not push that dock out. The minute you set your hands on that thing, now you've set the dock adrift. So it'll be under. So please be careful not to do that. But it was, I want to thank Mike Liberty, and he had an entire crew, and I'll let those guys talk about that. But it was really a nice thing, and we got it done in pretty short order, actually. So luckily, it was a fairly nice day as well. So, and Shrewsbury brought down a front end loader, and they just took them away. So that was all good. It's the way it's supposed to work. And the buoys that were at the Lake 20 bridge, the Route 20 bridge at Flint Pond have been removed. So I think those are the last of the safety buoys. I think the Shrewsbury PD got those out, but I got the ones at Route 20 out, but I think they took the rest of them out, and we appreciate that. They could talk about that. And other than that, it seems to be fairly good. The drawdown will be starting. We're going to do this again in a couple of minutes at the lake management stuff, but the drawdown is going to be happening starting November 4th. Is the earliest that DCR could get over there and start to lower the gate. That kind of goes down in increments, and it probably takes 3 weeks or so for the lake to get down to the winter pool. So I want to appreciate the DCR for helping us out with that. That's about it for my report right now. Mr. Pica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
The buoy at the Half Moon Cove has been removed. It's placed basically still, show with message pretty much right at the gateway, call it that if you want, to the cove. A comment, the lake level, interestingly, is stayed up pretty much at the same level for most of this past year, even though we had drought conditions. So in my mind, it shows that the dam is doing its job, and that the lake, besides that, must be spring fed, because there wasn't many rain events to fill up the lake, but it stayed up to its level. So it was an interesting thing to take note of. Some people made some comments about the drawdown. They said, gee, couldn't it be a week earlier and maybe start a week later? Well, whatever. But I figured I'd bring that up, Mr. Chair. Eagles, I personally been out in the lake. I haven't seen them lately, so I don't know if they're on their call it what you want, roaming vacation, where they'll tend to fly about 500 miles on average from their nesting point, to then come back and around the 1st of February. And then moving on, besides that, we had a derecho wind event a couple weeks ago with a rainstorm, and the winds that just blew in on the front about 70 miles an hour. Well, I noticed it knocked down a tree in my property, a 100-year-old tree had damaged my house, but going around the lake, I noticed it knocked around a few trees down, and maybe even though some of those docks that were loose, maybe got loose from that wind event. That was quite an event. Other than that, Mr. Chair, the lake's activity level is obviously markedly down. There's a few boats out on the weekend, although this weekend past, I saw some people tubing and still water skiing, so people are still taking advantage of the what had been good weather, and now it's obviously getting colder, so the boating season's obviously drawing to a close. So that's my report, Mr. Chair, at this time.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Pica. Appreciate it. Officer Amato.
Hi, this is Officer Amato. I just have two quick things. First thing being that the remainder of the safety buoys have been removed from the lake. And second thing is the lake patrol boat has been removed as well for the season. That's all I have.
All right, cool. Did you guys get to do your film thing down there with the boat?
Unfortunately, we did not. The weather was against us on that. Yes.
Right.
So springtime, we're going to plan on doing it.
All right. Sounds like a good thing. All right. Good. Thanks again for all the effort you guys put in this past season. I know it was a tough one. Officer Valier, you have anything to add to that?
Just want to thank everybody for a good season. It was pretty safe out there. All in all, I think everything went well. When we did remove the buoys, we did number everything. We're going to map everything for location come the spring, and maybe put out a couple of extra buoys next year. I have 4 new ones in the boathouse that we'll probably put out next year. Other than that, really nothing else. Just want to thank everybody for a good season. looking forward to next year and getting some more activity out there, patrol activity. I know Chief Anderson is really pushing for more patrols out there, and hopefully we have a great next season. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks again. That's, like I said, we really appreciate what you guys have done. The buoys, you're going to add buoys on to that, so that's to additional locations, or we're going to replace just the ones that are?
Anything that's old, we're going to try and replace that. We are going to put a second one up at the North Quinsig boat ramp for no wake because it's just out of control up there. So we'll add one on each side of the docks, a little further out, and then we feel like we need any other areas addressed out in the lake, then we'll take care of that as well.
Okay, that's perfect. Yeah, that area definitely helped. Angela could hardly work. There's so much activity down there. So, but it is a problem. And the thing with it is, I think, you know, and I'm defending people that may or may not deserve it, but I think some of the problem is you can't see the buoy, or you don't know what it's for until you're kind of like right up on it. And but I can't imagine anyone who puts their boat in and out of that thing wouldn't understand it. You don't want to have a wave go by the boat ramp. It makes things a lot harder. So, but that'll be a good thing. And so there's a couple of low spots too I'd like to address in the spring. One over here in Flint, and a couple on the Lake Quinsigamond proper that probably could use some attention from a buoy. If we have to get other ones, we will. And I'm wondering also in the spring if we should number the 2 buoys at Flint Pond as well. So I don't know if do you guys have numbers for those, or?
We can do that. We do have numbers. So what we did was engineering printed out colored maps of the whole lake. And what we did is we did longitude and latitude of that location, and we numbered it all on the map. So come springtime, if you want to add areas to that, we'll number each buoy, put it in that location. You'll have the exact location, satellite location, and we can we'll just update the map. And then we're thinking about maybe printing those out, and so everybody has it. Maybe put one up at each ramp so everybody knows where each location is, and it's going to be labeled with everything. So it should be pretty squared away. Wow,
that's fantastic. That's way further along than I thought you guys were. So that's really good. So next thing, we're going to have an app for the phone.
Yeah, that would be nice.
So we can just look them up. But it must be to you as well. So if someone calls in and says, "Hey, you know, there's a boat in distress on buoy 15," you guys know exactly where to go.
Yeah, and we'll have an updated, printed, laminated, colored copy in dispatch. So if anybody has a problem out there near buoy 5, send help over here, and we'll know exactly where it is.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, good. All right, thank you. Is that all, Sean?
Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you, everybody.
Good.
Hope you have great holidays.
Thank you. Thank you. You too. Captain DeAndre.
Hi, good evening. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple things. Our boat is out as well. We did acquire a 15-foot Boston whaler from Environmental Police. Prior to this, we didn't have our own boat. We were sharing with the fire department, so that's actually great news.
That's good.
It'll allow us to be go out there whenever we need to, as well as if there is a fire emergency. What the protocol was before is we would have to actually head in and let the fire department take the boat. So now we'll have a boat out there as well to be able to assist them. So I want to just thank Colonel Santos from the Environmental Police, Shrewsbury PD, Kenny Polito, and everybody else that assisted in getting us that boat.
That's fantastic. All right, great. And that boat, if it's the one I'm thinking of, because the Environmental Police were out in it a couple times this summer, that thing can get under the Stringer Dam. Yes?
Yes, it was. Yep. So what happened was, I guess they went in a different direction in regards to what type of vessel that they were going to go to. So in turn, they gave that over to surplus, and we were able to get that. So very good news. They'll be able to allow us to have certainly more patrols next year as well.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much. And thank you guys as well for all the work you did this year.
You're welcome. I was talking to Fire Chief Lavoie, who was the fire department chief. He wanted to bring something to the commission's attention. What he was looking for is he was going to send the Secretary of Public Safety's office a letter in regards to possibly getting a feasibility study to see if they could dredge the area by Half Moon Cove from Route 20 south to Flint Pond boat ramp, the Oak Island, to see, obviously for public safety, if there was any issues over there, so they could get their boats over there. But prior to him sending that letter, he just wanted to see if there was any issue with anybody on the commission.
I mean, I can't speak for the whole commission. For myself, because I live on that side of the lake. I mean, you know, that'd be nice. I'm not sure exactly what he has for the scope of dredging by Oak Island. It's a big job. Does he live over there, or?
I believe it's for, I'm not sure if he lives over there, but I believe it was more for a public safety matter. I think it was to get under that. There's a bridge over there, to get under that bridge, as well as having access to
in the culvert.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
To be able to get in case there was any sort of emergency over there. So again, it wouldn't be any cost to certainly the commission. It would be grant money through the Secretary of Public Safety's office. But again, he wanted to run it by the commission just to make sure that no one had an issue with it prior to doing that.
Wow, you can get that done. That'd be great. It definitely will improve flow in the two bodies of water, which is basically what the environmental folks are going to be looking for a reason to do the dredging. Although having I don't know if you can actually get a boat underneath the culvert. You're not going to be able to dredge that because I believe it's concrete under there. But you know, that's fairly shallow water through there. You got height, so you can. I don't think that's really the issue, but it's you know, because I was in there quite a bit this year because you know we kind of paddled around that side of things. So it's not very deep inside the culvert, and the dredging on the other side of it, although be helpful for the flow and whatnot. I don't know if it's not going to bring down the concrete. The concrete's where it is. So just to throw that out there. But the dredging would certainly be a good thing. Thank you. Is that it, Captain?
Oh, yes, that's it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So could I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
This is Michael Pike. I live at the gap to the Half Moon Cove, and people have been talking about this for years. I'd be interested to know what monies might be available to do that. I mean, I also, you know, down the Cape know that dredging of channelways for boats to come in and out of certain bays and coves is kind of almost like routine business. But would think it would be fairly costly, but it would improve the flow of the lake, more traffic. I know that people frequently go under that in kayaks, but that's they only draft about 3 or 5 inches. But if something could be done where it would be at least a foot or 18 inches of water, that would allow for a number of other boats, not obviously giant power boats, but other boats to go in and out of there, and it would, again, improve the flow of the lake. And all in all, that would be a good thing. I'm just curious as to what kind of monies are available to do that.
I think he was looking at, through you, Mr. Chairman, Captain DeAndrea, in regards to sending something to the Secretary of Public Safety's office and see if there's any grant money associated with it. Again, it would only be a feasibility study to see if it's actually doable, and then find out where the money would come from to do it. So, but again, it would be through the Secretary of Public Safety's office. It wouldn't be anything in regards to the commission having to pay anything.
No, thank you.
Any other comments on that?
That's all from me, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you.
Michael Piper.
Okay, perfect. All right. Moving along, Mr. Nickerson.
I do not have a report.
All right, thank you. Ms. Amory?
Hi. So I just want to remind people living on the lake, particularly on the Worcester side, if you're going to make changes along your property line at the bank of the water or on the slope moving down to the water, you must apply for the permitting process, and that permitting process may involve more than one agency. It could involve the Conservation Commission, the Lake Commission, and I think there might even be a state level permit. And we've had an issue where people would go ahead and just make changes without checking what the requirements were for anything that you do at the lakefront, and skipping the whole permitting process, and it's created a problem. So we'd like to encourage people to pursue the permitting process before you do anything, and check the Wetlands Protection Act and check your wetlands ordinance for your city or town. That's my report.
Okay, thank you for that. I know that one thing we're trying to pay closer attention to is that if someone wants to make, certainly any new dock permits now coming out for new docks being placed in, we want some type of a determination letter from it's in the application instructions when you apply for a dock permit for a new dock, that you need to talk to conservation and get their nod before you do anything. So and that's all around the lake. It's not just Worcester or Shrewsbury, or that's in all three communities. That's a requirement to get a permit to put a new dock in. And also that probably over the winter we'll kind of go back in there and just make sure that the rules for renewals and for new dock permits are cleared, are more clear, and that if you do make changes to your dock specifically, that you'll probably have to go back through those agencies as well. So thank you for bringing that up. All right, is that it?
That's it for me.
And all right, Miss Lisa.
Okay, first I want to apologize if you hear snoring, because that's my dog. It's really loud. I have no report, but I was curious about the subcommittee that was going to be created from the last meeting.
Yeah.
Did you get volunteers?
I have not heard from anyone. Are you volunteering?
A volunteer.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Is that it?
Tell us what the subcommittee is again.
This subcommittee was to redo the rules. Not redo the rules, but to review the rules and to make changes. Again, just like we just talked about with the dock permits. So that would fall under that category. That we review them, make any changes, do any housekeeping we need to do. If there's an additional rule that someone thinks needs to be applied there, then we'll have to take that to a hearing if we're adding a rule. But or even changing them in any significant manner. So that's basically what that is. And the rules the last signed copy of the rules was back in 2005 or something. It's been a while. I think there's only like 3 members of the commission, not even 3 members. I think there's 2 members of the commission they were on there when that was signed originally. So we probably need to go back there and do it. And times have certainly changed. So I'd like to have that done. And I welcome anyone who wants to serve on that. But I would like that, you know, obviously someone from law enforcement has input. So, Mr. Nelson.
A couple of points. Due to the cold weather, the Quinsigamond Rowing Club's activities are slowing down, ending for the year. They held their last race last Saturday, the Caffeine Classic. The cold water rules are now in effect. The 4-hour rules, if you're out there in a single now, there has to be 2 signals within 100 feet of one another. You have to have a cell phone. And it's just really slowing down. Very few people are going out.
Okay, it was a tough year for you guys this year.
Yep. Oh, there is one other thing I was reminded. I have a question for Angela. Several people at the boat club have asked me to ask about not the regular rowing dock, but the dock on the southern end of the property where the coaches' launches are kept. There's a 4 or 5 foot cliff that you got to jump down to get down to the dock or climb up to get up. And they've been asking if the town could do something to make that more into a path rather than a jump.
We'll have to look at that.
I was just reminded by the comments about property modifications on the Worcester Shore. Otherwise, I forgot about it.
I don't know, be able to get a permit.
Right.
Go through conservation.
Okay, good luck with that. All right. Good. So update of the lake management plan. You know, the biggest update here is that the drawdown is going to start on November 4th, and per our permits, and I wanted to do this because Mr. Piker had brought up, you know, maybe starting earlier and ending later, and I'd love to do that. Unfortunately, the way our permit is written under our order of conditions is that the drawdown can't till I'm not sure if it can't start till November 1st or it can't start till after October 31st. But in any case, it can't start, you know, effectively till November 1st. And per the permit, the lake needs to be down at the winter pool by December 1st. And it needs to be back up to normal pool, which is basically the water's back up to the level that it would be naturally by April 1st. So those are the conditions under which we live with the drawdown down there. The drawdown is specifically under the DCR, the natural heritage is basically you know, in to treat you know, and manage vegetation, and especially invasive vegetation on the lake. So that's really what the object of the drawdown is. And I've had discussions with, as it turned out, mistakenly, early on in my career at the commission, I've had discussions with Natural Heritage about, you know, people wanting to fix their walls and work in the shorelines, and that's absolutely not a reason to draw down the lake. And they're very quick to point that out. So, you know, it does have, the drawdown does have an effect on the management of invasives on Lake Quinsigamond. So we want to keep doing it. You know, and I see that also that going over onto Newton Pond as well. That pond's probably better situated, or better suited for the drawdown even than Lake Quinsigamond, because it's a little bit shallower and you can get further out. On this side of the lake, you know, Flint Pond is fairly shallow, so it's very effective over here. But you know, so it works well where it works. but it's strictly based on, it's strictly done for, to manage the vegetation. As we just found out from the bill pay, we got another bill in from ESS, I think today, regarding they've moved along a little bit further on the permitting at 4 Newton Pond to do the chemical treatments for next year. So we're hoping that keeps moving forward. This particular permit process doesn't have to go to Grafton or Worcester, but it does go to Shrewsbury and Boylston. So we have to add a new community onto the roster here, but that's moving forward. So that's good. Other than that, I mean, it's pretty much the same. We're moving along, and nothing's really changed on the plan for next year. Although I will be updating the plan just as an annual thing over the winter, so that we'll have an updated plan and with some results of what we've already accomplished with the invasives. So and on the rules of Lake Quinsigamond, the only thing I really wanted to talk about here is that to kind of fill the subcommittee. I'd appreciate it, anyone who wants to come in, and that includes someone from the watershed as well. So I think it's important to have the abutters input into this. People see what's going on near the front of their houses, and it's good to know where we can improve stuff. And any members from law enforcement that want to participate would also be helpful. And that all said, is there any questions or any other comments about that from the commission, from the members? Oh, one other thing on the lake, man. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Amanda.
So I just wanted to make a suggestion that maybe we could look at a streamlined permitting process that takes into consideration all the different permitting bodies, and it all goes into one application. Or if they already have that, then I would withdraw that suggestion. I think, well, ours is separate from the conservation. I don't know whether, I guess when you say streamlined, I don't know how a longer permit makes it. And there's some things that don't, from a conservation standpoint, if you want to put a dock on Lake Quinsigamond, that obviously affects the resource and affects the shoreline, which is where conservation steps in and does it. But I know on the Shrewsbury side, I can't speak for Worcester, but I know on the Shrewsbury side, they don't really, I don't think they've required, and Kent's not here tonight, so we can't get his input, but they haven't been requiring, an NOI to put the dock in, and they don't really issue order of conditions around it. Worcester may be different, Grafton may be different, but that's how they've handled it here. So I don't have a problem with that. Anything that can make things easier and more efficient and less costly is a good thing. It's two separate things, but it's. So the suggestion is just bringing the multiple bodies of permitting authorities together into one package, so that the potential dock owner doesn't have to go to 3 different locations, 3 different times, 3 different processes, and then misstep or drop a ball or whatever. Just make it a little easier to just contain the information.
Yeah, no, I agree with you that it can be confusing. I get the calls all the time. How do I do this and how do I do that? I got one. I got an email this morning from someone over in Lake Ave North asking how they, how you go about getting the permits and who you talk to. So, I've been sending everyone to conservation. That's the first step. You got to get those guys to do a letter of determination to see if you need to move forward with any other kind of permits from conservation. And then, if they give us the nod, or give the abutter the nod, then we can, we'll move ahead with the dock permit. So yeah, let's explore that. I don't, you know, we can do that on the rules committee and see if that's something that, I think that the challenge there will maybe getting all the, you know, boards coordinated and not, you know, when you think about it, Amanda, it's not just like, you know, the Lake Commission coordinating with Worcester Concom, and I don't know who else we coordinate with there, but the planning board or whoever else you have to deal with in Worcester to get something done. But you got to do that with the other two communities. So that's another, you know, challenge, because I don't think there's a whole bunch of communication going on between everybody on that light. But it's not a bad idea. So, any other comments about that? Suggestions? All right. So, moving along, the next person we have up is Jacqueline. What's new on the lake, Jacqueline? Have you got your buoys out of there yet? Oh, they stay in all year. Did we lose you? Nope. Okay. All right, you know what? I'm going to skip ahead then and go to the Lake Quinsigamond Watershed Association.
Hi, this is Barbara. I just real quickly, I just wanted to add the names for who helped pull those dock pieces out. I think you might. So besides Mike Liberty and Pete, it was also Joe Gabriella, Jim Barraza, and Tibbetts, and also, and Troy Gothing. And also want to do a shout out to Sarah Cronin, Sean Fitzpatrick and their families, and Lisa Hastings for doing the cleanup at Oak Island and Gouche Park a couple ago for the town of Shrewsbury. And I'm going to yield the rest of my time back to Jacqueline, but my time will go to Gia. We'll be reporting out on the bacteria sampling.
Okay, Jacqueline, you back?
Can't hear her.
Yep. Is your mic on, Jacqueline? I can only see your.
Back to mute.
Just frozen.
Oh, sorry about that. I was calling you from the phone. Before I got very excited, and instead of unmuting myself, I hung up on you.
Okay.
I'll share my screen real quick. I have a quick presentation for all of you just on the latest water quality stuff. We had some interesting stuff happen this week. I think I could present. Okay. All right. Y'all can see that. This is the great new setup that we have for sampling on Lake Quinsigamond. Instead of going out in a kayak, we now go out in a propane-powered boat. Thanks so much to the town of Shrewsbury for all your help in making this happen, and of course the city of Worcester for providing the boat. I was out last on Lake Quinsigamond on October 14th. At that time, the surface temperature was about 61 degrees. It has decreased a little bit since then to a little bit below 60 degrees. October 14th was the day after the massive downpour that we had on the 13th. So we saw some interesting things happening in the lake. Usually the water clarity of the lake is similar in the north and south basin, but we found that in the southern basin it was only 7 feet, which is highly diminished from what it usually is this time of year, while in the northern basin it was 9.5 feet. And we'll talk a little bit about why that is in a second. We also found that there were some higher levels of bacteria in the middle of the lake than we've seen. Usually the middle of the lake, there's not very high levels of bacteria. And the levels that we found still aren't reaching the threshold to for for bathing, but it is higher than we had seen in the past, and this is probably the result of that extreme rain condition that we saw on October 13th. And so I'll show you a little bit more what that looks like now. So there were some great photos posted on the Lake Quinsigamond Watershed Association Facebook page documenting what occurred after the rainstorm on the 13th. You can see here there was a plume of sediment that came into the lake, seemingly from the catch basins and outfalls on the Worcester side around the Route 9 bridge. This was the result of the blowout, pretty much, of erosion controls that were happening or that were in place at a site on Belmont Street that is currently under construction. Since then, and I'm sure Amanda could elaborate on it more, there has been an enforcement order, and the contractors have been required to clean up a lot of the public infrastructure, as well as reinforce their erosion controls to ensure that this does not happen again. But truly, it was an exceptional event. I think we got 3 inches of rain within just a few hours. The soils there were very loose. So I guess my purpose for bringing this up is to first reassure everyone that this was not a sewage overflow. This was not a CSO event. There was no sewage being poured into the water, which was a question and maybe a valid question that a lot of people had when they saw these photos. But what's really interesting is that the new monitoring buoys that we put out were able to detect this increase in turbidity resulting from the increased amount of sediment suspended in the water in a very dramatic way. So I went out there, and at the time I hadn't seen the data yet from the buoy, but I was recording those lower transparencies in the water while I was out there taking samples on the 14th. But then I went back and looked at the buoy data, and you could see on this chart that the turbidity of the water holds steady right around 20 NTUs, which is the unit we use to measure clarity, all the way back from the 8th of October. It goes down a little bit in the evening, but generally during the day, it's right around 20. And then shortly after the storm, it increases dramatically. And to this day, we haven't seen it decrease back to those formal levels. We've currently turned off the buoy temporarily because when there's a lot of overcast weather, it's not able to recharge from the sun. It's solar powered. But we are hoping that once it comes back out of its sleep cycle, we can see where we're at for turbidity levels. So this is just one example of how this technology is able to help us determine the effect that these events that are happening onshore that are a result of anthropogenic activity or human activity on land, and how the climate is affecting what we're doing and how it's affecting the lake through these erosion events, how we're able to capture that data using this technology. So that was really most of what I wanted to share today. One of the things that we're doing to try to reduce the amount of erosion, and I've talked about this in the past, is that we are putting in a biofiltration unit on Lake Ave North. This project is essentially a glorified rain garden that will take a lot of water that normally runs off the road and channels down through the area near the Coal Mine Brook, Browning Beach area, and bring sediment into the water, and it's going to filter it through the ground so that it reduces the amount of sediment that's brought into that area. And I know that a lot of people are aware that there is a lot of erosion there. This project had been in the planning phases all summer, but we finally got it through Concom and out to bid, and we received our bids and are just choosing a contractor now and hoping to have this technology installed in the early spring, so that we can continue to shore up our defenses against this type of thing happening again in the future. Does anyone have any questions?
I'm good, I think. It looks, that's an interesting spike we've had there. Was that reading, Jacqueline, that was off of the buoy, is that the South Basin?
In the South
right?
Basin. Yep.
Okay. All right.
Jacqueline, that is very, very interesting. And I think that it could potentially be used for, along with as an enforcement action for, there was follow-up to a release that occurred up Belmont Hill at a construction site. We don't normally see all that sediment coming in just because it rained a lot. We got a lot of big rain events. We don't see that spike in turbidity. And we see a clear impact from a violation. I think it's very, very, very good to have that in the future.
Yes. Yeah. And unfortunately, we don't have the buoy running in the northern basin yet. That would be kind of like our control, right? So that we could see if this is happening in the entire lake or if it's just in this area. But, you know, the supply chain for the company that makes the buoys was severely impacted by coronavirus. And so we're hoping over the winter we'll get that new buoy back, and then in spring when we redeploy, we'll have both buoys up and we'll be able to have a better feel of the overall turbidity levels in the entire lake. We are already aware that they are different in the north and south basins, but how different are they under these conditions?
It's excellent. And one more question. When, next summer will we have sorry, I forgot the word, to be able to access the data remotely? So there's gonna be like a control panel that the public will be able to look at the data live?
Yeah, we're hoping to eventually get to that point. You know, this year we're trying to figure out what the status quo of the lake is. We really want to make sure that when people look at this data, they know what they're looking at, and provide a guide to show them, like, this is what's considered a normal range for turbidity. This is what's considered a normal range for phytocyanin. This is the action level. And so to do that and to provide the information to allow this data to be digested by the public, we need to actually see a season of data first and just analyze where the lake is presently. And so we are hoping to make it available to the public, but we want to make sure that we're also giving people the tools to understand the data, and we won't be able to do that until we understand it a little bit better. But that's the ultimate goal, and hopefully sooner rather than later.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we did have a meeting on Monday of the Conservation Commission at which we discussed the enforcement action on the properties on Belmont Street. It's a large-scale project where there was from one area and stockpiling at an area above that, and the erosion control measures that they had in place were insufficient to handle that volume of water, and so the water just overwhelmed what they had in place. So the commission has asked them to go back and revise their erosion control measures to put in a detention basin so that should there be another event like that, there would be a settling before it would come cascading down Belmont Street. And they also are not planning to do much more of that cut and stockpiling. I think that they've kind of reached the end of that stockpiling process. And so they're moving into a new phase of their development.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. All right, is that it? Any other questions?
I had a question about the rain garden. Is that, you said it's near Brownie Beach? So is that going to be like near Coal Mine Brook, or is it going to overlap or touch at all Coal Mine Brook?
Right. So if you are driving up Lake Ave North from Route 9, You come to the culvert or the bridge that goes over Coal Mine Brook, and to the south, you have that area where there are some benches set up and people go down to fish before the brook. So that's actually the catch basin right there, right before the bridge. And that empties out pretty much a little bit further down the slope in that clearing area. And so what's going to ultimately happen in this plan is that they're going to they're going to divert that pipe into a larger rain garden area where the trail is currently, and they're going to move the trail a little bit further south down the street around, so the trail will begin right near or below this rain garden, and there'll be some signage there that I'm working with the Watershed Association to explain what is a rain garden, what is this improved rain garden, what are the aspects that are going to make it better than your typical rain garden in controlling these events, and then also maybe some other interesting facts about Browning Beach and Lake Quinsigamond to make it give it that personal touch for the area.
That's very cool.
Okay. Anything? Any other comments or questions? All right, Angela, I have one. Jacqueline, I have one question regarding Whitler Drive. You guys have done a test out there to determine what kind of animal or whatever bacteria was going on, and you guys determined it was from dog, yes?
So the tests that we did several tests actually the day after as well of the heavy rain, because we thought based on the data that the Watershed Association and GIA had collected that during rain events there tend to be high levels of bacteria in that area. I went there, I collected a split sample for bacteria, E. coli, just to be sure that there was some, as well as a DNA biomarker sample. That DNA biomarker sample would be able to determine if there was the presence of dog, human, or goose DNA. So if there's bacteria in the water, is that DNA present? When we received the samples back, we found that there were fairly low levels of bacteria relatively. We saw below action thresholds for E. coli, which means that this wouldn't have been considered a hit, this specific rain event, and therefore we weren't surprised when we saw very low levels. We saw non-detects for goose and human DNA biomarkers in the biomarker sample. We saw a slight detect for dog biomarkers, but it was very slight. It was kind of like just slightly above what was considered a non-detect. So it's unfortunately not a secure dog hit, but it's more likely than human or goose at this time. So
okay.
It's definitely an interesting result that we will continue to look into. And hopefully at one point we'll be able to get a sample that has more bacteria in it, because that's probably what contributed to not getting a more strong signal.
Okay, and just so I understand the the size of it, like if it came back and the biomarker said, okay, this is from some type of dog species, but it wasn't a very good, what I'm understanding is it wasn't a lot of bacteria in there to test. So based on the level of bacteria that you found, would this be indicative of, like a dog, taking a dump on the shoreline and it got in there, or would it be a bigger problem, or, how big of a mess would the dog have to make to get a hit like that, or to get a reading like that?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's very hard to tell. It's not just necessarily how big the mess is; it's how close the mess is, right?
Right. Right.
So, it definitely is inconclusive. But it was interesting that we saw the dog traces.
Yeah, that was interesting. It is interesting. All right. Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Any questions, comments? All right. So we're going to come back to Gia, I guess. You ready to go?
I am. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so I had to restart and I just pull up. For some reason, every time I try to open up my Google Drive, I get shut down. Internet is not working with me today. But hello, everyone. I hope everyone is well. I hope October is treating you well. I have a terrible joke. I want to update you all, if you would be so kind.
That joke took me a minute, but I finally got it. It was up.
Tough crowd. So I wanted to just say again, thank you for this opportunity. Some of the events and things that I found while poking around the lake, I think are very important as far as water quality, but also culturally too. I forget to say that sometimes, but I didn't want to end this presentation without saying that because it's kind of like our backyard. Some of you, it's your front yard. So I just wanted to add that little tidbit while I am trying to get my presentation ready. And just 1 second, and let me know if you guys can see it okay. Yeah, for some reason I'm having a hard time uploading anything to my drive. I don't know why it's taking so long. Oh, here we go. Okay. So let me know if you can all see this. Can everyone see that okay?
Oh, it's coming up now. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for being so wonderfully patient. So I don't want to take up too much time, but I will, because I think this might be a repeat for some of you who have already seen this with the LQWA Zoom meeting that we had last week. But I will still give it to my utmost vigor. So I did change a few things as far as kind of putting the final touches on. Now that I'm looking into it, I'm not seeing the forest through the trees anymore as I was when I began. So one of the things I've done was I've taken a step back scale wise, and I started to look at what we were doing and why it's so important. And I'll get to that a little bit later and keep it brief, I promise. But I wanted to start off by looking at our major river basin, the Blackstone, where it begins, which is kind of us, and then where it ends in the Narragansett Bay. So I thought that was kind of important just for me anyway, to see just how spatially important what this work that we're doing here is. So for those of you that don't know, we have 10 sampling sites that are along the entire lake. We have 6 in the North Basin and 4 of them in the South Basin. And I changed so you can see the names of where they are. One of them, Jacqueline just had spoken about where they're going to put the rain garden, which I think is so cool as far as stormwater management and runoff, because I think that's a very important part of the large question of what's coming into the lake. So we have officially completed the sampling on the 8th of September. We were testing back E. coli for the tributaries, or some of the tributaries for the Lake Quinsigamond. And you can see here, these are our sample locations. Oh, went away. Where did it go? Oh, good Lord. My apologies. We have just finished data, like reconciling our data, because one of the most important goals for this project was to acquire quality data, so that way we could, you know, with clout, really say what is going on in the lake. So I am going to start with our summary table of all of our lab results that we got. So these are the counts that we have for all of the 10 sites and all of the samples that we took at each of those sites over 10 sampling days. We were lucky. We were able to complete them every 2 weeks, starting the 19th. And this is MPN or CFUs, if you will, per 100 milliliter. And the 100 milliliter is the sample bottles that we used. Anything that is bold and italic is an exceedance. And that's an exceedance in regards to the watershed planning and the water standards. I also have a little bit of information about that if somebody is not aware of what that is. We do have a criteria for what is okay and what's not okay, basically. And this is just a very simple snapshot of what it's looking. Within this table here, you can actually see the spike in counts over time, when we started getting warmer and when we also had precipitory events. So you can see here on the you know, on June 30th, we have a lot more high counts. And I'll talk about that a little bit later too. One of them in particular was at Whitlow that Jacqueline was just talking about. That became number one on the sites that I identified as hotspots, if you will, for high counts, solely on the criteria for high counts, but Whitlow Ave at that pumping station is a primary interest as a result of this project. I graphed that data to help to give you all a nice little visual aid, and it breaks it down between all of the sample locations, the counts, and up in the left-hand corner of that graph, I also wanted to give you like a little snapshot or reference of the precipitation that we had during the sampling season. So that applies to each location, this little, the precipitation graph. So if you look at Belmont Street, you can see, and kind of eye it, you can see the increase. Not all of the locations correlated or you saw similarities between the two, but a few of them did. I also have another graph that kind of shows it a little bit more cleanly. You can see at the bottom, this is the progression. It goes from light to dark. In each section, it goes from light to dark, so that's from earlier dates to later dates. Let's see. So the summary, this is again what I was talking about, the exceedances. It's really what we wanted to see, you know, what was high, what was low, what was consistent or no change, and what was unique. So at bathing beaches, we have the geometric mean, which is the most consecutive, the most 5 recent samples cannot exceed over 126. And then no single sample taken during the bathing season shall exceed 235. The table that I showed you earlier, that was the single sample. This is the cohort summary table, and I tried to make it seem a little bit different throughout like times in the bathing season. So for instance, at Belmont Street, I mean, it's not really necessarily where you go to bathe, but it's still recreational because there's fishing that happens there. And every single cohort, which means 5 sampling days was over the exceedance. So this helps you identify where you are in the lake in reference to what's important around it. If there's people, doing recreation, if there's people actually at the beaches, you can see where you are if the standards are being met or not. And each cohort represents 5 consecutive sampling days, which is every 2 weeks. So that is maybe a nice tool or reference for some people to have. For me, because I need everything to be simplified. So if that works for you, we are probably related. This graph, this one helped me kind of look at what was going on with other variabilities. So precipitation, like we had been talking about for a while, and what we were just talking about earlier, rain events are very interesting. They're very unique in what it does to the lake. So you have all of the different, locations and what was going on, how bacteria was either present, not present, very high, in addition to a rain event. I'm sorry it's so cluttered, but if you do take a look closely, you can see like the day of or the next one day, or like day 1 or day 2 after a rain event, you can see the spike. And as I talk about the site locations, I have it just like what's the word I'm thinking of? It's just that bacteria amount with the precipitation. All right. So here we have Belmont Street outfall, and this is under the bridge at Route 9. And there are 2 very important outfalls. Jacqueline provided me with a list of them on the Worcester side, and on the left image you can see it's LQ12, LQ14. And then I also used ArcMap and Waters Geo, which is an EPA mapping tool, where you can look at catch basins. So there are some areas that have unique characteristics, like for instance, if there's a heavy storm water event or system that comes into play when it comes to high counts. That was one of the things that I looked at. So I started isolating some of the characteristics to either catch basins or heavily populated areas, things like that. So that's for instance, Belmont Street. And you can see here that there's a little bit of a correlation. There's actually a very strong correlation between a rain event and bacteria counts. Temperature was not, I tried just to, measure it, or just to see if there was a strong correlation with temperature. That wasn't, but I still put the data up there anyway, just in case anybody wanted to see, or if there's something that I missed, am not aware of. But you can see there in the graph, there's a very, very strong correlation with temperature and, precipitation and bacteria counts. I took a lot of images because I wanted to do like maybe a time lapse of what it looked like when I first got there at each site and what it looked like in the end. This is a very good it's a catch basin cage, or it's a catch cage. It often gets clogged with, human, anthro, waste and trash, but the city does a very good job at keeping it clean. I'm pretty sure they cleaned it a few times while we were sampling over the summer. And it's also a hydro separator. It's a very, very cool term, but it's a separator that is in there. And I think there's also one at UMass. So there's some really good infrastructure going on as far as stormwater management. And this is the UMass location. It's very, easy explanation. There is a catch cage. It is broken, but this is state owned. It is owned by DCR. Here, there wasn't a very strong correlation between bacteria and precipitation. And the exceedances, the cohorts for that geometric mean we're within threshold. Coal Mine Brook, this is a good snapshot of the extent of Coal Mine Brook. It actually goes all the way up to Lincoln Plaza. I'm not sure if anyone knows about that. And there's a few interesting wetland delineations in the northern and western. If you were in this map, you looked. There's a lot of deep marsh. There's, I think, a few swamp marshes. There is a correlation between this area. This location had a strong correlation between bacteria counts and precipitation. It was over the exceedances for the cohort 3 times out of the sampling season. Yeah, the extent of Coal Mine Brook is actually pretty interesting. All this water travels all that way. It's very unique. And there's some pictures of it. Some very fine Worcester artwork. And then the rock, I'm assuming that these rocks were put there for as far as maybe some type of management, but I don't think it's natural. I'm not entirely sure. It's maybe another question I'd love to ask Jacqueline whenever she's not crazy busy, or I'll ask Jacqueline and Barbara to explain things just a little bit more detailed. Billings Brook, that's over by Eagle Head. There's also some interesting wetland things going on here. There's a few artificial paths that connect the outfall to some deep marsh, and then there's deciduous, like heavily wooded marsh. This area, there was an SSO in the beginning of the sampling season. There's some few interesting. There was an organic iron deposit. I had never seen that before, so that was interesting. Let's see, not much else with Billings Brook. There was one good correlation. Like I would say 2 with 2 of the rain events that we had. This also was an exceedance for the geometric mean. Let's see. I don't want to talk too much about Billings. I want to get to the meat and the potatoes of this, which is Whitla, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So you can also see here too some of the wetland areas. Those are actually protected, so there's a lot of politics in that. But this is a nice panoramic view of Billings. There's a very impressive beaver dam that exists and is continuously worked on in that area.
Where's the Beaver Dam on the map above? So there's a Beaver Dam. Show where it is on the map.
So on the map?
Yeah, the slide just right.
So the Beaver Dam would be, the outfall is here. So the Beaver Dam would be just there. It's like right at the outfall, right in front of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Tillys Brook, also known as Westbrook, and it's a direct tributary of Mill Pond. Well, it's Mill Pond feeds Westbrook, and then it comes into Quinsig. I had not learned about that until I started investigating, the extent of this waterway. So you can see Mill Pond right there, and then there's Westbrook that goes right in, and it's, I think, mostly underground. I'm not entirely sure. A very good correlation with the last precipitation event that we had. So you can see how that influences it as well. I'm not sure if because there's been some sites that have a continuous, an almost perfect match or correlation between high bacteria counts and precipitation. Some of them don't have all of them, so I'm curious as to why. I don't know if it could be natural landscape or if it's a slope issue, but that's something else I'm also investigating a little bit, not too much, because maybe next year. So this is a picture. The first 8 samples Mike and I ventured out were taken from the boat. So we were actually on the lake and we were about 20 feet away from the culvert. The last 2 samples that I took were directly above the culvert because I wanted to be able to have that differentiation between if it's coming in. And then often the waves would go towards the culvert instead of coming from the culvert to the lake. So flow and flow direction played a little bit of an important role in that. It only had an exceedance for that geometric mean once. And you can see there's quite a little bit of, trash, and there was a strong recreational event that happened, I think, the last couple of months of the summer. It's a hot topic, but it is unfortunate to see, garbage, people aren't picking up after themselves. It is a little tough, but, hopefully we'll be able to, unite everyone and have everyone be anti-litter. So Whitla Pumping Station, this southern portion of the lake, the southernmost part of the South Basin, I find it fascinating. It's very marshy and riparian. A lot is going on in this area. So I did a little bit more investigating of Whitla, and you can see here, this is the sampling site right here. And this water geo is a very unique tool of showing water flow and the direction. So this particular site has a very long fate and transport aspect. I'm assuming that because of all these different areas, like these marshy areas and deep marsh and swamps, there's probably a little bit of filtration that occurs. But just the extent of it, I was, impressed. But this has been a very, very high bacteria count. As Jacqueline and I had went out in the beginning of the sampling season, and we met here, and we had, we found some animal tracks, and we identified them as potentially raccoon. And just hearing that, there was no detection for. See, that's what I'm not sure about. I know you tested for human and there was a slight detection for dog. Was there for anything wildlife, any wild game?
So unfortunately, when we ordered the test, you had to pick the thing that you are looking for.
I see.
They only have certain tests available, and they didn't have anything beyond. The only other ones that we could have gotten that we didn't were for cow and for seagull. We didn't feel like that was probably a likely cause in that area.
Did you say cow?
Yes.
Yeah. If there was cow fecal matter, that would have been. I would have threw my hat in at that point.
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, I've been thinking if there was a slight detection for dog, I know a lot of people throw their, when they walk their dogs, they throw their dog, poo in the drain, and I think maybe, I don't know if it's enough to say that it does get caught in the stormwater runoff, because we see so many spikes after a rain event, and I also. At Whitla, I put the catch basin layer in. I wanted to see maybe if there's a correlation of, that area. And I don't know. I have to find out how many different people have. So that would be difficult, but it is something to maybe consider and look at in the future. This is just a breakdown of the waterway. Kind of shows the actual catchment of that area too. Let's see. So the highest exceedance was almost 13,000 MPN for Whitla, and that was the highest I had seen to date. But the precipitation, there's a very odd correlation and maybe not even a correlation at all with this area. So it's a little baffling to me. Maybe it's just until we can, get some more sampling done or some source tracking, I am completely baffled by it. So I'll move on, but I just want to show some pictures of the pre-construction, construction being done, and then the construction complete. This abuts the resident's house. Fitzgerald's Brook, also another long extent for a waterway. Right here on Lake Ave, there's an artificial path, but then there's a very long stream that's connected to a wooded marsh. A few rain event, the beginning of actually the middle of the sampling season, we had a rain event that had a correlation with high counts. And Fitzgerald's Brook was also another site that had exceedances for the geometric mean throughout the entire season. And there's this is a little tributary that goes in between Maduka's and a residence. Again, this is another a good tool to show, the extent to where this water is coming from. It's mostly, I'm guessing it's a stormwater, but I cannot make that assumption just yet. So this is the culvert. This is the channel bridge at Lake Ave. And there was a very heavy rainstorm, powerful storm in September, and it looks as though there's maybe some tree debris in there that was caught. I sent Jacqueline an email to let her know what was going on, but that's how powerful things can get pushed. And just like Jacqueline, what you were saying with the most recent storm that we had, rain is really moving a lot of things around in this, in our area and to our lake. So this is Meadow Brook, also known as Great Meadow Brook, and this is a recognized wetland, an inland wetland and a riparian area. It's very beautiful. There's actually purple loosestrief that I've identified. I wasn't sure what the wetland plant was, but when it blooms, it's absolutely beautiful. This was another one that had a strong correlation, but with a high count and precipitation, but it did not have a continuous exceedance in results. And this is just some pictures of, this is me standing above the culvert where I sampled. And you can see at first look, I thought that there was maybe a cyanobacteria issue, but I think it was just the natural change with, seasons in some blankets. In the middle up there, I didn't get a chance to put, it's either Harriet or Harry, the blue heron, a friend that I made on the lake. He usually kind of he or she perches just right there. And sorry, my cat is trying to wrestle you all. So that's pretty much it for the sample, for the site update as far as bacteria. I want to go back just real fast just to give you guys another idea of what's going on in the lake. And I wish I had put another table in, but I apologize that I did not. So these numbers are pretty high. These numbers are definitely something that is of an interest. And I can feel the endeavor beginning with Barbara and Mike and everyone else a part of the Watershed Association. I think this is going to be a good baseline to start with in order to keep monitoring the lake and monitoring it well. So these numbers speak for themselves. As far as the project itself, a lot of support, and teamwork. We were able to meet all of the data quality objectives. So that's based, the data that we have, we met every single one of the objectives, which makes our data just, more credible. So that way, because these numbers are so high, we're going to be able to set a precedent and I'm excited about that. So that's just a little information of what the data quality objectives are. They're outlined in our materials, and this is the meat. Like, this is part of the meat. So we met all of our like for precision, accuracy, our lab precision, and some of the assessments that I'll be able to do that'll go along with not just the high number, but the what's going on in these areas that have high numbers. So that's pretty much it. I have a few more things I have to do before we submit finally to DEP. Barbara and I have been working very, very hard. I know she's very busy, and I've been bothering her. I've been bothering you a lot. I apologize, but I'm so glad that we're so close to finally getting everything ready and submitting this week or next week. Does anybody have any questions? Hello?
We're here.
Hi.
Okay, so is there any questions for Gia? All right. Yeah, once again, Gia, great job with this. Very informative. I think it's important that we have this information and we learn how to interpret it and turn the data into information. So and continue the program. Because it's going to be a good thing. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Someone like to speak?
No, I just wanted to reiterate what you said, Mr. Chair. That this is my speaking. It was very interesting. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you all. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the evening. And I know you're not going to end with me, but I just wanted to say I really, really, really enjoyed meeting you guys and working with you. And I wish that in another way or next year when things settle down, I would love to meet you all in person and bother you then, like I've been kind of bothering Mike and Barbara. But I just absolutely love this, and I'm so glad I was a part of it. And I'm gonna say that like a million more times, so I'm sorry.
Thank you, Julie. We hope you're not going anywhere, so.
No, don't get rid of me now.
Okay. All right. That was excellent. And so for our next trick, I do want to kind of go back to the lake management for a second on this, and just a shout out to Patrick. And Patrick, you're welcome to make any comments you want. Are you still on with us? Yes. Okay. So you submitted the schedule on there. Unfortunately, we can't vote on it tonight, but we will bring this back up around on November.
To show you, this was our best guess at this point.
Right.
It will change, and even to the with respect to the high school. Right now, Angela reminded me that the high schools, the second spring season, which would involve high school rowing, starts April 28th and runs through July 3rd. So right now we have absolutely no idea what's going on. That's just the best guess. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess we'll I'd like to figure out something we can do to kind of accommodate changing schedules and weird stuff. I know that this year unfortunately just a tough year for the rowers, and I suppose all sports was a tough year, but so kind of missed it. But yep, we'll circle around in November. Let's get this behind us, and we know what things are coming. If you could, make sure that as soon as you have information that we get it.
Will do. Thank you.
That'd be great. Thank you. All right. That done, I think we're on to set the date for the next meeting.
Can I give one quick announcement?
Oh, you bet.
I just wanted to let everyone know that the Lake Commission has an email like listserv and people should join. There's about 260 people already signed up. But this is how you'll get announcements on the drawdown, and if there's any other events or issues on the lake, you will get an email from the town of Shrewsbury. So if you go to shrewsburyma.gov/notify me, and then if you scroll down to the news flash, you can either sign up for emails or text message from the Lake Quinsigamond Commission. And then the next meeting is November 18th. It's not going to be the fourth Wednesday because that's Thanksgiving.
So you said the 18th, 1/8?
Yeah, November 18th.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, the 25th is just the day before Thanksgiving.
I'll be making pies. Bill, you look like you don't believe that.
Well,
Okay, so, all right. With that, if there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
second.
Is there, all right, all those in favor? I gotta read through the list again. Okay, Mr. Pica,
Aye.
Officer Amato,
Aye.
Officer Valieri,
Aye.
Captain DeAndre.
Aye.
All right, Mr. Nicholson.
Aye.
Miss Amory, I saw you waving. Miss Amory, you good?
Aye.
Okay. Miss Lisa.
Aye.
All right, Mr. Nelson. You good, Bill?
Yes. Aye.
Okay, so moved and voted. Thank you all, and hope you have a great rest of your night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.